Okay, let's unpack this. We've got sources describing an ancient creature that was so terrifying it literally changed the course of
And
science.
became a trophy of war.
Right. So what sounds like a crocodile or maybe a whale or even a giant fish, but turns out to be a massive swimming lizard.
That would be the Mosasaurus.
Wow.
We're diving deep into the extinct leviathan that, well, it absolutely ruled the late Cretaceous oceans.
And this is not just a story about some big reptile.
No, not at all. This is a foundational chapter in the history of, well, of natural history itself.
Exactly. So our mission today is to navigate the murky history of its discovery, really understand its unique biology as an apex predator, and, figure out what secret scientists are still trying to uncover, even after 250 years.
You have to understand the historical context here. Just imagine the world of science in the late 1700s, the
Right.
whole concept of extinction, the idea that a species could just vanish forever. That was really controversial.
It was almost a philosophical debate, wasn't it?
It was. Deeply.
Hmm.
So when this creature's massive fossilized jaw shows up, it gave George Cuvier,
The father of paleontology.
our father of paleontology, it gave him the physical proof he desperately needed to show that, yes, entire species could just disappear. It was a total game changer.
It really sets the stage for everything that comes after. But before it was proof of extinction, it was just this huge, strange fossil that nobody knew what to do with.
Pure taxonomic chaos.
Let's start there then. The naming crisis.
So the first fossil material surfaces in 1764. It was found in a chalk quarry near the Meuse River over in the Netherlands.
And when the naturalists of the day got a look at it, they were
completely stumped. I mean, you have to understand, the scale of it was just wrong.
they were bouncing between completely different animal groups, right? I read they were debating if it was a giant crocodile.
Or a large-toothed whale,
Yeah.
or some kind of monster fish. It just didn't fit anywhere.
So how long did it take them to finally land on giant marine lizard?
Oh, decades, honestly. The breakthrough was when they finally noticed that the jaw structure, the teeth, they had a resemblance to a monitor lizard.
And that messy start led to a whole other problem, one that paleontologists are still cleaning up.
The wastebasket taxon problem, yes.
Because all this happened before we had, strict modern rules for naming species pre-1822.
Exactly. So for a while, basically anything that looked like a big marine reptile from that era just got thrown into the Mosasaurus genus.
Over 50 species, I think.
At least. It was a mess. So now scientists are constantly trying to sort out what's a real Mosasaurus and what's something else entirely.
So if we hear about Mosasaurus today, the iconic one, which species are we actually talking about?
We're usually referring to Mosasaurus hoffmanni. That's the one that became the standard bearer.
So one with a dramatic backstory.
The very same.
Which brings us to the moment this animal becomes more than a fossil. It becomes, what, a piece of political capital.
It's an incredible story. So the second, more complete skull of M. hoffmanni is found in the 1780s. It becomes famous across Europe.
So famous that it literally becomes an objective of war.
It's almost unbelievable, isn't it? When the French Revolutionary Army is besieging Maastricht in 1794.
They didn't just want the city.
No, they specifically demanded the fossil skull as part of the terms of surrender.
Not gold, not cannons. A lizard skull. What does that say about the time?
It says that scientific discovery was becoming a new kind of currency, a source of national pride. The French Republic wanted to show it was intellectually superior, not just militarily.
So they took it.
They took it, backed it up carefully, and carried it back to Paris in triumph.
And it was there, in Paris, that George Cuvier got his hands on it.
Yes. In the early 1800s, he examined it and officially gave it the name Mosasaurus, the lizard of the Meuse River.
And he used that very war trophy to prove his theory.
He did. He could look at that jaw, see the undeniable reptile features, and state with total confidence that nothing like this was swimming in our oceans today. It was unassailable proof.
This one lizard launched the age of paleontology.
It really did.
Okay, but this is where it gets really fun for me, talking about the anatomy, what this thing actually was in the water.
An absolute monster. I mean, based on the largest specimens of Mosasaurus hoffmanni, we think it could have reached lengths of up to 17 meters.
17 meters. To give you some scale, that's a little bit longer than a modern humpback whale.
Just try to visualize that.
Yeah.
A powerful serpentine predator the size of a whale.
And the fossils tell a story of a supremely violent life. What do the skulls tell us?
They tell us they were true apex predators. The jaws were Well, they were highly advanced. They had this unique, almost double-hinged structure.
Which let them do what?
Open their mouths incredibly wide and deliver just tremendous crushing force.
And that violence wasn't just for hunting prey.
Oh, not at all. We found so many fossil jaws with healed breaks, especially around the snout.
Which suggests they were fighting each other.
Viciously. These were probably territorial battles, dominance displays. They were not subtle creatures.
So, beyond just brute force, how did a creature this massive hunt? What about its senses?
The skull tells a pretty clear story there, too.
Yeah.
Mosasaurus had these very large eye sockets, which tells us it relied heavily on vision.
Okay, so a sight hunter.
Right. But its olfactory organs, its sense of smell, they were pretty poorly developed.
So it's not sniffing out its prey from miles away.
Exactly. Which suggests it was likely a surface swimmer, much like a modern crocodile, patrolling that air-water interface, using the light from above to spot things below.
And geographically, we know they lived in deep waters, but near the shore.
Capitalizing on those productive coastal environments. And you have to remember, this wasn't some localized monster.
No, the mosasaurs were everywhere.
They were the dominant marine reptile globally during the Late Cretaceous. Sea levels were way higher then, which created these huge inland seas.
Basically a highways for them to spread out.
That's a great way to put it. We find their fossils everywhere, from South Dakota to Turkey. They were the undisputed kings.
The scale of this thing just forces the question. How does a lizard get this big and so perfectly adapted to the water?
That brings us to their evolutionary detour. They're a classic example of what scientists call a secondarily aquatic animal.
Which is a critical distinction.
It is. It means their distant ancestors started in the sea, but then they evolved to live on land, became land-dwelling reptiles.
And then millions of years later, they went back.
A spectacular return to the water. They didn't have to start from scratch.
The best modern example to help you picture this is the whale, right?
Absolutely. A whale is a mammal. It breathes air, it nurses its young, but you look inside its flipper.
And you find finger bones.
You find the remnant structure of a hand, a smoking gun from its land-dwelling past. Mosasaurs followed an incredibly similar path.
Which brings up a really interesting anatomical mystery, especially with its tail.
For a long time, yes.
The early ideas were that it had a long, sleek, tapered tail, like a big monitor lizard.
But that's just not a great design for a powerful pursuit predator in the water. It doesn't give you a lot of thrust.
So the mystery started to unravel not from the big Mosasaurus hoffmanni, but from a smaller relative.
Right, because the tail of the big one is notoriously elusive in the fossil record. But we found a preserved body outline of a smaller mosasaur.
And that outline showed the big twist.
It did. It showed they had actually developed a bilobed, crescent-shaped tail.
Yeah.
Very, very similar to the tail of a modern shark.
A much more efficient engine for propulsion in the water.
Far more efficient.
And the Ellis Lembler's ancestor returning to the sea and evolving a shark-like tail, that is just a textbook example of convergent evolution.
It's a perfect example. Unrelated organisms developing similar traits because they face the same environmental pressures.
The need for speed in the open ocean?
Exactly. It resulted in a fish, the shark, and a reptile, the mosasaur, developing almost identical locomotion systems.
And you brought up a really surprising analogy from the sources to make this concept stick. The fingerprints of koalas and humans.
It's a mind-blowing detail, isn't it?
It is.
Koalas evolved these distinct human-like fingerprints to help them grip the smooth, slippery bark of eucalyptus trees. Humans evolved them for gripping tools.
Same structure, similar function, but completely separate evolutionary paths.
That is convergence in action.
And speaking of adaptations, we finally got a peek at their skin, so to speak, just recently.
That was a huge breakthrough. The first ever record of mosasaur skin came from fossilized impressions. Not from Mosasaurus itself, but a close relative called Plotosaurus.
And it confirmed they were covered in scales.
Indeed. And these weren't just simple scales for armor, they were highly specialized.
For speed.
For speed. The microstructure of the scales was all about reducing drag. If you want a way to visualize this, think about a golf ball.
The dimples.
The dimples. They help it cut through the air by creating this tiny layer of turbulence that actually reduces the overall drag.
So the scales on this giant lizard worked like the dimples on a golf ball.
In a similar way, yes, allowing this massive reptile to just glide through the water with incredible efficiency.
Wow. Okay, so to sum this all up, we've traced the history of this massive 17-meter marine lizard,
A violent surface-swimming apex predator,
whose fossil was literally seized as a trophy of war.
and became the piece of evidence that launched the entire theory of extinction.
It's an incredible legacy.
It really is. But, like so many of those giant reptile families, their 20-million-year reign came to a very dramatic and abrupt end.
The asteroid.
The asteroid. All the Mosasaurus, along with the non-avian dinosaurs, fell victim to that mass extinction event 66 million years ago. The oceans were suddenly reset.
And yet, despite 250 years of intense study, a period that saw wars, scientific revolutions, huge breakthroughs, there are still so many secrets left.
Oh, absolutely.
Like the definitive, exact look of that elusive tail, which I think raises an important question for you, the listener, to mull over. If a creature this iconic, whose story is so intertwined with the history of science itself, still holds these basic anatomical secrets, what other game-changing evidence about extinct life is just sitting out there, undiscovered right now, just beneath the surface of the Earth?